What's up, guys? I'm here with Doug Bernier from Pro Baseball Insider, and I just wanted to pick his brain a little bit, give you guys some insight on his journey and some of the things that he's been through. Um, he played in the major leagues. He's currently a scout for the Colorado Rockies, so a lot of baseball experience and knowledge, and I just wanted to pick his brain for you guys, hopefully, so that you'll learn something. So can you first tell them a little bit about yourself and your career coming up as a young baseball player?
All right, well, I grew up in the Central Coast of California. That's where I went to high school. I came up as a pitcher, infielder, and I pitched all the way up until I was a senior in high school. I realized pretty quickly that I wasn't going to make it as a pitcher, being about 5'11" and not throwing very hard. That there was a lot of those guys, and so I knew that if I was going to try to play in college, it was going to be more as an infielder. I remember that I always tell people this, like I was really disappointed. My senior year in high school, I didn't have any college offers, and so I kind of thought I'm probably like a lot of other people, I thought I was a little better than I was, I thought I was going to go to all these Division I schools, and it didn't quite happen, right? And so I ended up going to a junior college, and that was the best decision I ever made because I got a chance to play. I had some other friends that were good enough to play Division I, and they just went and they sat the bench for 2 years, and then when they became a junior, they didn't play again because they didn't play for 2 years, and they brought in a junior college transfer, and so they pretty much just sat for 4 years. And playing junior college was the best thing I ever did. I got a chance to play, I got better, and then so from there, after my sophomore year at junior college in California, I went to Oral Roberts in Tulsa, Oklahoma, got a scholarship to play there. And then after my senior year, I was not drafted. And then I had about 3 days where I was thinking, okay, I've been playing baseball my whole life. What am I going to do now? And then that day I got a phone call from the Rockies, actually, and they asked if I wanted to come along as a non-drafted free agent. And so I said yes, and they said, we have a flight for you in about 2 hours. Can you be at the airport? And I went and I started playing, and really fortunate because kind of the lifespan of non-drafted free agents they're usually filler guys, right? It's like someone didn't sign in time or they're whatever, and so they just need someone to kind of fill a hole, and that's what I was doing. And so like your life expectancy in baseball is usually about a year or so, but I was able to knock out 16 years, so I was really fortunate, and it was incredible. So I wasn't the guy that was a highly drafted guy, wasn't anything like that, but I was able to kind of scratch and claw my way and kind of make a career out of it.
Wow, that's awesome. That is so cool. At what point in your playing career did you say in your mind, like, I think I got a shot at this?
I think it was after my first spring training. I know that kind of seems weird, but I remember just thinking that when I first got my very first time that I landed, and after they called me and I went out to watch the guys play, I was sitting there thinking, like, these guys are so good. There's like 12 different infielders out here. Our roster was like 40 guys or something in rookie ball, and every guy seemed so good. And I was a little overwhelmed. I was like, I have no chance. Like, this is the lowest rung of the ladder, and I feel like everyone is better than me. But it wasn't until that first spring training where I kind of settled in and I was like, do you know what? Like, I think some of these small things, like just knowing how to play the game. Like I watched some of these really talented players not know how to play the game and make a lot of mental mistakes over and over again and not learn from their mistakes. And I felt like knowing how to play the game, it kind of helped kind of push me above some other players. And then I had some coaches take interest in me that first spring training and say, hey, like, you can field the ball pretty well. Like, let's go with that, And so, like, I was starting to feel a little bit of confidence in that first spring training that, hey, maybe I can do this. I was still a long, long way away, but I think that's where I started to feel like that, hey, if I keep putting in this hard work, people are starting to notice, and that maybe I can make something of myself.
That's awesome. How long did it take you from your first spring training till your major league debut?
It took me 6 years. So I signed in 2002, and then I made my major league debut in 2008 with the Rockies, and it was a really short debut. It was only about 3 days, and it was actually kind of interesting because those 3 days, I think, pretty much saved my career. Like, once you kind of get to the big leagues, I think some organizations start to think of you like, hey, this guy, this guy's a big leaguer, even if it was only for a couple days. And kind of the backstory on that was, we actually, at the time I was in AAA with the Rockies, and they just sent down an infielder that was on the 40-man roster. And when you get sent down, you have to wait 10 days or 15 days before you can go back up. And what happened was, after he got sent down, 2 days later, there was an altercation on the field, and so there was some suspensions and things. There was actually one guy was suspended, and they needed an infielder for that night, and they couldn't recall the guy that just got sent down. So I happened to be the guy, and I got a chance to start a game, and it was really cool. So, and it's cool because I still have the lineup card from my first game. Wow. And I actually got to pinch hit that day for Todd Helton, which is like even more surreal, because he was always a guy that I got to know a little bit in the organization. It was just an incredible person, and so it was one of those blowout type games where I got a chance to pinch hit, and it was cool because you could see his name crossed out and mine in there, and so that was a really neat thing.
Wow. Tell us about the experience. So let's say the first start that you had in the big leagues. Mm-hmm. Tell us that experience, because obviously this was probably a dream of yours since you were a young boy playing baseball as you were coming up, and to get out there and make it on the major league field, what was the feeling like? What was the experience like? You got anything about that?
Man, it was so cool. Like, I was a little bit overwhelmed before the game started. It was like, you kind of have those butterflies going, you have the nerves going, and I kind of felt that before I actually knew I was going to start the next day. It was kind of funny because there were some spring training games earlier that year where I would come in and play first base for Todd Helton. I think that's where I got to know him a little bit. Kind of some practice games or whatever, I'd go out there and I'd work with him, and I would just, sometimes just play first base. And he was like, hey, he's like, Doug, you're going to play first base tomorrow. And I was like, okay. I was like, all right. So he goes in and he talked to Clint Hurdle, our manager, and he's like, hey, Doug, he needs to play tomorrow, And he was like, okay. He's like, but he's not going to play first base. How about we have him play second or whatever? So my debut was actually at second base, but yeah, it was like, so I knew I was going to play, and so my nerves were starting to kind of kick up a little bit. But once I got on the field, like, that was kind of the place where I felt comfortable, and I felt like I was able to settle in pretty quickly, and it was a really cool moment.
That is so cool. Tell me the difference, or if you can, explain the difference from the minor leagues and the food and the travel and the clubhouses to the major leagues, the travel, the food, and the clubhouses.
Well, it is really different. First off, in the minor leagues, man, it was peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every day. There'd be a loaf with peanut butter and jelly. You'd have that, maybe some fruit. There was always a big tub of cheese balls in every single locker. I mean, you knew it was a minor league clubhouse when you saw the big Costco-sized tub of cheese balls. But then, and in the lower levels, man, you're crammed onto one bus. Everyone's doubled up. Sometimes you're going on like 9-10-hour bus trips. I mean, they're intense. And then I remember, like, when I was with Colorado, it was obviously a really short time. But when I got called back up with Minnesota, I was taking trips, and man, you're on a private plane. You're eating food, like. You're looking around, and it was unbelievable. It was like overwhelming to think, like, man, this is how you travel. But I mean, you kind of need to when you're going to New York and to LA and all these places. You got to get there quickly, but still, it's just surreal thinking, like, man, this is like unbelievable food. Like, you get, back in the clubhouse, you got a chef back there, and he can like make you a burger or make you like some, chicken and vegetables or something like that. And it was just kind of weird going from peanut butter and jelly sandwiches to that. Like, it was like a complete different operation. It was really cool.
How much of a motivation was that to try to stick around?
Oh, so much. It's like, yeah, I mean, just like the plane flights and like the hotels, it was like now all of a sudden I got my own room instead of having to double up in a room, It was like, man, all this stuff was motivation. Playing in these cathedral type ballparks, just unbelievable.
No getaway rooms in the hotel?
No getaway rooms.
If you don't know, getaway rooms is, so you would have two guys in a room, and then you had to check out at a certain time, and they didn't want to pay for all those guys to stay in the room later, so they would have like 1 or 2 getaway rooms, and everybody on the team, and this is the minor leagues, would go to that room and they'd be laying around, people laying on top of each other.
Luggage in there.
It was horrible. It was so hot, like the room just got really hot. Oh man.
Yeah. No, so no getaway rooms. Yeah, in the big leagues, and it was incredible though.
What about? I've heard that people say it's hard to get to the big leagues, but harder to stay there.
Yeah.
What do you say about that?
I totally agree. I mean, it was really difficult to get there, and but the guys that are able to, when you're there, so many people are trying to take your job, right? I mean, there's a new draft class every year, and they're working their way up, and the previous year's draft are working their way up, and it's like you have to outperform everybody to stay in that spot. So the people that are able to maintain, like, be able to have like a 10-year career in the big leagues or whatever, that's so difficult to do because they have to be so good for so long. And to be honest, I don't know how they do it, because being consistent in baseball is hard to do. Like it's easy to go out there and have a good game, right? Go 4 for 4, you're feeling good about yourself, but then the next day you're 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. But like to be able to be consistent every single day for 162 games is so difficult. And it's just hard to be that consistent guy and to be able to just kind of establish yourself as a major leaguer. And so that's why I'm so impressed with the guys that can actually do that.
What would you say was your best attribute for making it? Was it your defense, your speed, your hitting, your mental game? What would you say was your big thing that really got you there and had so much success with?
Physically on the field, it was defense. Like that's the skill that I brought to the party. Like I would come in, defensive replacement late in the game. They could stick me anywhere on the field, and I'd hold the fort down. I could play shortstop. To me, that was a big thing. Like there are a lot of guys that play second and third base or first and third base, but being able to play shortstop was a game changer for me. So like if you are out there and you play shortstop a little bit, or they want you to play different positions, don't forget about shortstop, because if you can play that and the coach knows that, it makes you so much more valuable, because not a lot of guys can actually play short. All right, and the next thing is just being a good teammate. It's the 25th guy on the roster, the last guy on your roster. You want him just to kind of fit in, not create a whole lot of problems in the clubhouse. And I think that is such a big deal too. If they're going to take one of 2 or 3 guys, if there's one guy that doesn't really get along with people, or maybe is not a good worker, or doesn't prepare himself properly, all that stuff factors into the decision. And so being that well-rounded player is really important.
And hard work too. You were a very hard worker coming up, and then also while you were there, right?
Yeah, very, very much so. I mean, that was. I always wanted to say, like, I always wanted to look in the mirror at the end of the day. It didn't matter if I had a good game or a bad game. I wanted to say I gave it everything I had. And I always wanted to say, after I was done playing, after my career was over with, I wanted to be happy with the effort that I put in. Whether or not the product on the field that day was good or not, but I wanted to look back after my career was done and say, hey, I gave it everything I had. I put in as much effort as I could, and I'm totally happy living with the results.
So let's talk about that next stage of your life. After playing, and you got into scouting. Can you talk about a little bit what you do when you're evaluating these guys? Who are you scouting, and what are you looking for?
Yeah, I'm watching major league and minor league guys. And what I do is, like, obviously I'm looking at the tools, right? I'm looking if someone can throw, hit for power, run, all that good stuff, right? Just like every other scout. But I think being the kind of player I was, I look at the things, the controllables, the things that you can actually control. There are, like just running down to first base, giving a good effort, on and off the field, showing a good attitude. Like, I understand that there's going to be times if I'm in town for 5 days, I understand you might not be at your best over those 5 days. You might strike out 10 times. I get that. But also, when you are not at your best, it actually shows your true colors. So it helps me see who you really are. It's easy to be the best teammate when you hit home runs every day, right? But when you've struck out four straight times, and you come in here, blow up the dugout, break a water cooler, break your helmet, all that good stuff, your true colors are starting to show. there was a game last year, I remember, there was a runner at first and third base with 1 out. The batter hit a ground ball to the shortstop, and if he beats the play out at first base, he gets an RBI and a run scores. Well, he didn't even give an effort down the line. He didn't even touch first base. And to me, that bothered me because it was like, we only run down to first base, what, 4 times a game, 5 times a game if we're lucky. And it's like, I don't understand why you can't just go run 90 feet. You know, it's right there in front of you. Just do that. And like, those are the